All right, guys. So in the last video, I worked to establish just what happens at the cellular level of the coronavirus, this novel coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 attacking our bodies. But in this video, I want to kind of back up just a bit and talk more about how this is causing disease. And you'll notice that there are a lot of different words here in this word bubble on my website. But lots of them are things like symptoms, respiratory, contagious, etc. And so I'm going to go back over here to our document that we were looking at in the last video and just kind of make sure we realize that we have a lot of things to cover, and this isn't going to happen in just like 2 weeks, right? This is going to be probably, we're looking at probably the rest of the semester to cover all of this, and your final culminating project is going to be your display of your understanding of all of this through that communication to our communities. So it's going to take us a while to get there, but I think that it's going to be really meaningful with it being tied to something so relevant at the moment. So just to kind of really quickly review, we learned that SARS-CoV-2 has a spike protein that binds to the ACE2 receptor. It's engulfed by endocytosis, where the mRNA is released into the ribosome. The ribosome is able to read that mRNA and make the proteins that are necessary for the virus to build itself. And then we use an RNA-dependent RNA polymerase to make those extra copies of RNA, which allows for the release of many more viral particles. As I shared last time, this type 2 pneumocyte that we are working with here, so this is that specific kind of cell. We're looking at the type 2 pneumocyte, and it's the only one in the lungs that has that ACE2 receptor. So it's the only one that can be infected. Type 1 cells are not being infected by this virus. But remember, I told you that type 2 pneumocytes are the ones that create this layer of surfactant. And we addressed that the surfactant is what helps keep the nice round bubbly shape of the alveolus that is able to expand and contract as necessary for air to fill our lungs. But if that surfactant layer weren't here, as it contracted, that water would be close enough to itself to cohere and stick to itself, which would cause the ultimate collapse of the alveoli. But now what I want us to see is that, okay, we have this cell right here, this type 2 pneumocyte that is just under attack. And when it is under attack, it can't do its normal job. And when it can't do its normal job, it cannot create that surfactant. And there's a couple of things that result in not being able to create the surfactant. But one of the things that happens is that this type 2 pneumocyte sends out all of these signals. And these signals are called, for now, we're going to leave it just at inflammatory mediators. And that's basically the cell saying, I can't do my job. I need someone to come and check out what's going on. Just kind of like, crap, something's messed up. And that's when our immune system is going to kick in. One of the things that's going to happen as a result of the immune system kicking in is that we have these inflammatory mediators, and that causes these are signals that are going to cause this capillary or blood vessels to vasodilate. And what that means is our blood vessels are going from these nice little round, just kind of normal sized blood vessels, and they're going to get a lot bigger. The reason that they're getting bigger is so that it allows for more room for immune cells to be able to travel through. We're going to have to be flooding our body with immune cells really, really quickly, and so we need more room to do that. As a result of this vasodilation, though, we are going to get increased capillary permeability. Now, if we think back to our diffusion work that we've done, things move from a high concentration to a low concentration, right? Well, if we have increased permeability, there is a lot more fluid inside of our bloodstream than there is inside of our alveoli. And so it's going to move if it's got that increased permeability. In other words, these are spread out, these cells would spread out and they'd be able to squeeze through these holes, and we're going to now have it where fluid is going to rush into our alveoli. Well, with that fluid rushing in, what we've essentially done is we've diluted our surfactant. And so that's another way that we are ruining the surfactant inside of our lungs, because it's diluting it and it can't be so concentrated. So now we're getting that alveolus where it's able to go from, this nice round sac that can inflate and deflate easily to now we're looking at something that's a lot more contractual. And the result of this, having our alveoli in this kind of form as opposed to this one, is going to really result in what we call labored breathing. And that's one of the symptoms of this COVID-19 disease that's caused by SARS-CoV-2. So labored breathing is one thing. If you just cannot catch your breath and you just are not able to fill those lungs and it just feels like every single breath is taking every bit of energy you have, that's going to be one of our symptoms for COVID-19. And again, that alveoli collapsing is a result of that surfactant being diluted and the water being able to cohere inside of those alveoli. But now there's other stuff that's going on, okay? Our inflammatory mediators have been released, but guess what? We have these other guys that are acting out over here. We have these macrophages. Those macrophages are going to receive these inflammatory mediators and they're going to say, whoa, I need to have a lot more of me. They're going to send a signal to where macrophages are going to go through mitosis to divide and create more to start protecting us. Simultaneously, the macrophages are creating what we call cytokines. And so cytokines are going to cytokines are different types of protein cellular messengers. So these are just messenger molecules, and we have so many cytokines in our bodies, but we are going to specifically look at the ones that are released here. So the macrophage is what releases these cytokines, and we are going to first release what's called IL-1. We are also going to release what's called IL-6. And one other one that's going to be released is called tumor necrosis factor alpha. So these do a couple of different things, but the biggest thing that I want to focus on right now is that these macrophages are simultaneously going through and they are also engulfing these viral particles. So the viruses that have infiltrated, they're trying to phagocytose them, right? They're going to take them in through endocytosis, break them apart, and then get rid of their cellular debris. So they release, or I'm sorry, their viral debris. So they release these viral molecules that are worthless, right? These molecules can't really do anything to our cell. It has to be the full package. And then also at the same time that these macrophages are eating and breaking these things down, don't forget they're sending these signals out that are saying, hey, I need my T cells, I need my B cells, I need everyone to come in so that we can start attacking this thing with all we've got. But the key here is our bodies have to try and beat out the viral replication rate. Well, remember how quickly this virus is replicating. For every cell that it's infecting, it's making thousands more viral particles. And so we're like in this never-ending battle. Now, we can win it. It's just, it takes some time. And so what else is happening in here though is that, okay, so sorry, let me come back down to this one. These macrophages are breaking these things down, while at the same time, these type 2 pneumocytes are dying. And as they die, they release a bunch of their dead cell crud, essentially, into the alveolus. And we also get type 1 cells that are now dying because the surfactant isn't there. We get viral particles that are all over the place. We've just got a bunch of crap that's being broken down and released into the alveolus. What that does is, I think it makes sense. It's going to cause our immune system to begin creating inflammation messengers, which is actually what IL-6 does. We're going to get more inflammation. And that inflammation is also going to send a signal to create mucus. And as you can probably see, with mucus, you are going to get a very deep cough. Now, this is actually going to end up being a drier cough than what you might be expecting, because we just get so much dead cell crud so fast, it surpasses the time that mucus is able to be produced. Now, once we have IL-1, IL-6, and TNF-alpha made, we are going to be sending these signals out to get the rest of our immune system activated. IL-1, first and foremost, it's the very prominent one that is made, and this guy is going to enact on the hypothalamus of the brain, and the hypothalamus is what controls homeostasis, or also, remember, one of those parts of homeostasis is body temperature. And so as a result of IL-1 being increasingly created and released, we're going to see a really quick rise in body temperature, primarily because our bodies have adapted and said, hey, viruses don't do very well at high temperatures, so maybe we can at least slow down their replication rate if we give our body a higher temperature. So this is a result of IL-1. And again, that's released by the macrophages, okay? Now, the other one that was released was IL-6. I already kind of touched on that, in that this is going to cause that inflammation. And just to kind of clarify really quickly, IL stands for interleukin, and a leukocyte is a type of immune cell. It's a type of phagocyte, okay? So IL-1 is interleukin-1. IL-6 is going to cause that inflammation. It's also going to send out signals to say, hey, T cells, B cells, come and get me. And then TNF-alpha, as I said before, we're getting a bunch of dead cells, and these are going to induce apoptosis of the cell so that there are no more cells for the virus to infect. Obviously, that leads to more of a coughing response, that you have to get rid of those dead cell crud pieces. Wanted to emphasize here that cytokines are the ones that send messages. These are proteins. These are proteins that are made by the macrophages. Okay, so these proteins are made by the macrophages, and that induces that inflammatory response. So let's come back here to the very beginning, where we talked about the things we need to understand. Again, we've touched on the immune system. We've touched on how we breathe in. We're going to go into more depth on that. We've talked about how there are different proteins within our body. Now we need to understand, and we're going to talk about DNA, RNA, and how that codes for these proteins. When I say a macrophage makes IL-6, I want you to know what that looks like. I want you to know how this virus is impacting these metabolic pathways, and I want you to know how potential medicines that they're researching, like remdesivir and hydroxychloroquine, are able to impact these processes. Okay, this is all going to come out in that culminating final project that you guys are doing, and I hope that this really brings a lot of meaning to what it is that we're learning about.